But welcome in here on this Good Friday, 6 o'clock. And happy you're with us. I'm Julia, along with Julia and Chuck here this morning.
And it does feel like a summer breeze, but it's a spring breeze, so that means that it's coming with like spring ick on the other side of it.
Oh my God, wait, time out.
Oh, you don't have to admit it. I realize now that you...
I know what I just said.
Okay.
Southern breeze.
And now
so
you
bad
know.
at songs.
I'm sure somebody else thought it was Southern breeze too. I didn't realize that's what you were thinking it
was.
was.
But you know, we are going to have a southern breeze.
Okay.
We are going to have a southern breeze. And that will...
I'm not going to live this down.
That'll make us feel fine.
There we go.
Right? I don't know what the jasmine in my mind meant. I never knew that.
I don't know that one either.
If there's some floating around the air, that's why you're sneezing with the high pollen count. But forget that stuff. We've got a good start to the day so far. This is a look at Live Doppler 13. Hope you're off to a good start on this Good Friday here in central Indiana. Look at the rain and thunderstorms in Michigan today. That may get as far south as northern Indiana, but we're watching this, a complex area of storms with severe thunderstorm warnings now moving into Wisconsin. We're going to keep it dry here most of the day today. 65, can you believe that? 65 degrees, the current temperature in Indy. It's 67 in Louisville, 62 in Chicago. And right now in Indianapolis, we are 22 degrees warmer than we were at this time yesterday. Winds out of the south. It's a summer breeze, it's a southern breeze, and it's going to be a strong breeze. In fact, 38 to 40 mile per hour gusts by 10 o'clock this morning. So hang on to your hat if you have one. And that's pretty much going to be with us most of the late morning into the early afternoon. That's when we'll experience these really strong winds, but they'll kick that temperature up from 60 degrees at 7 a.m. into the 60s most of the morning, and eventually a high of 80 degrees. Yes, we have a chance for showers and thunderstorms. Slight risk of severe weather later tonight, with the biggest threats being downpours of rain and high winds. We'll have a timeline for you in minutes, but 6:02, it's a Friday, it's a holiday, so we've got to get to traffic this morning. Matt, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Chuck. Good news on gas prices as you are traveling across the state for Easter Sunday. Maybe you got Good Friday services you're headed to tonight, seeing some family, or maybe you've got a lot of sports. We've got a lot of high school baseball, softball games, golf matches. It's busy this weekend. I found the lowest price in Indianapolis, $275 out by the airport. Highest price just shy of $320. But the average price, a little bit of good news as we are traveling this weekend. $3, right there at $3 in Indianapolis. That is down from $3.18 30 days ago and down 1 cent from yesterday. So that's some good news. Now let's take you out towards the south split. I-65, I-70 looking pretty good. And then we got a big Morgan County showdown later today. The Mooresville Pioneers will be taking on the Monrovia Bulldogs. Good luck to the athletes tonight.
All right, Matt, thank you. Well, this morning, county health officials are sounding the alarm after an alarming increase of overdoses in one Indianapolis neighborhood.
But now there is a local organization that is determined to fight this problem head on and bring resources to those neighbors in need to help. It's happening tonight. But Anna Chalker is in our studio this morning that tells us how the neighborhood plans on tackling this problem. Good morning.
Good morning, ladies. So they'll be heading to the 46201 zip code on the Near East Side, so where that dark circle is here behind me. So let's get a closer look at this map so you can exactly see where this is. So this is a map from the health department that shows where EMS and Overdose Lifeline sees the most overdoses throughout the city. So how this is measured is by how much naloxone is distributed to a certain area. So in this East Side zip code that we're talking about, there were around 10 to 15 doses administered the first quarter of the year. And Overdose Lifeline says as it starts to get warmer outside, that's when they tend to see more recreational use and more responses from EMS.
Super important to track and keep on top of. That way we can respond appropriately and get people the proper supports. So when these things are occurring and we're seeing higher risks of overdose or more overdose events in an area, we can make sure we're saturating that area with naloxone, with test strips, with recovery resources, and really meet people where they are so that we can keep them safe.
While there is an increase in this neighborhood, city groups are seeing a decrease in the overall suspected drug overdoses. So in 2024, there were over 500 compared to almost 270 back in 2023. So like we've been mentioning, an event tonight to make sure that these people in this neighborhood get those resources. So at 6:30, we'll show you what you can get if you're in that area and just kind of what help you'll be able to receive.
Right. I know that you have done like in-depth stories on this as well. And when you showed us how tiny those resources are to help, it goes a long way.
Right.
Thinking about what
And
people need.
these numbers are showing them that it's working.
Yeah.
Their
Yeah,
efforts
there's a
are
decline.
slow,
Yep.
but working. All right, Anna, thank you. Well, this morning we are checking to see if police have made any arrests in connection to a deadly shooting. It happened on Indy's southwest side. The scene yesterday, you can see it here, lots of officers, crime tape. This was around 1:30 on West Morris Street near South Belmont Avenue. Officers say when they arrived, they found a victim in critical condition, but that person died in the hospital. Police also detained one person near the scene, but they have not yet said if that person was involved. We will, of course, share any new information once it becomes available.
This morning, a man is under arrest accused of stealing a vehicle and then leading police on a chase that ended in a deadly crash. This was breaking Tuesday morning as you woke up. Police said that the man drove off on Monday night while officers were investigating an alleged traffic violation in Newcastle. That driver led police along I-70 towards Indianapolis before eventually crashing on the east side near Washington Street and North Midhofer Road. One person died and 3 others were sent to the hospital.
This morning, an Indianapolis man charged in a deadly crash while intoxicated is asking the court to allow him to drive again. The lawyers for Bradley Woods filed a petition for a specialized driving privilege permit. This comes about a week, though, after a judge decided Woods would not be getting his driver's license back. The newly filed court documents show Woods wants to drive to and from work, to court, and doctor's appointments. Woods is charged in the death of 20-year-old Avery May. The crash happened on the southeast side of Indy at the end of December of 2023. May's girlfriend, Riley White, was also in the car and suffered serious injuries.
This morning, Governor Mike Braun is announcing a new effort to cut down on crime at local bars.
So what are nuisance bars? Well, you might have guessed it. They are establishments that tend to attract crime, drugs, and disturbances. Indiana State Excise Police say nuisance violations at these kinds of places went up 34% in just the last 6 years.
That's a big spike. Governor Mike Braun tells us in this statement, quote, that these so-called nuisance bars present a serious public safety threat, becoming hubs for crime, drugs, and violence that make our communities more dangerous and drive down nearby property values. So now Indiana State Police and the state's Alcohol and Tobacco Commission's Excise Police will cross-train and share resources in order to target this kind of crime.
This morning, Indiana lawmakers will look to make up a $2 billion budget gap as they craft a plan for the next 2 years.
So that means that lawmakers either have to make cuts or find a new source of revenue or do a little bit of both. And they have until the end of the month to figure this out. If lawmakers choose to raise more money, they have some options. You might remember that lawmakers previously supported raising the sales tax on tobacco products, so like cigarettes. But those measures have always been rejected by the Senate. However, Senate Democrats proposed several amendments to the budget that called for raising sin taxes, but those were voted down as well.
Now, after a grim budget forecaster, lawmakers say everything's on the table.
Right now, we are reducing our income tax rate every year. I think through 2029, and legislation passed, I believe, earlier in the session to continue that slow decline of our rate year over year. I think that is potentially going to be looked at. Yeah, I think everything's on the table.
Lawmakers acknowledge there's quite a bit of work ahead to rework this budget before the deadline.
Well, this morning, Mayor Joe Hogsett is applauding the passage of a road funding bill at the Indiana State House. The city would be getting a big funding boost if House Bill 1461 is signed into law. So the legislation reworks how money is distributed in the city. Under the current law, road funding is based on how long the roads are. But this new bill says that some funding will be based on how wide a road is. In other words, how many lanes that road has. So that means that Marion County could see up to $50 million in grants to fund road work.